When a professional wrestler hits their peak, it is almost impossible to relive that spark. Most WWE wrestlers will never touch a world championship, and most WWE wrestlers will never ever touch a main event of WrestleMania. But what happens when you do both of those way too early in your career? Is it something that could set you up for catastrophic failure? Now, before we get into the video, if you guys enjoy professional wrestling content, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And let's talk about what happens when you peak a little too early in your WWE career. Recently, we've seen a lot of world champions become first-time world champions in the latter half of their career. We're talking about guys that are in their late 30s, like a Cody Rhodes, a guy that's in his 40s, like a Damian Priest, finally reaching the pinnacle of the professional wrestling industry and becoming world champions in the WWE. We also see many guys in the WWE still make it past their 40s and have very relevant matches, like an AJ Styles, like a Sheamus, like a Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. They are still super relevant in the upper card of professional wrestling. And we've seen guys like LA Knight, who didn't even make it onto the big screen of the WWE until he was 40 years old, and now he's one of the biggest faces of the company. Now, many of these guys are almost 20 plus years into their career, and a lot of them have definitely peaked already. We can all agree that Randy Orton peaked. We can all agree that a Kevin Owens has peaked. But we're seeing guys like a Damian Priest peak in his 40s. We're seeing a guy like Cody Rhodes peak in his late 30s and will probably peak all the way through his 40s. But what happens when you have guys that peak way too early? And does that usually mean that their careers are destined to fail? The 2002 OVW class saw two people that hold records of being the youngest world heavyweight champion and the youngest WWE champion. Both of these guys had literally hit the peak of the wrestling industry before they even turned 26 years old. First, let's talk about Randy Orton. When Randy Orton showed up in the WWE, he automatically got put into one of the greatest factions in the business of Evolution. He got taken under the wing by Triple H and Ric Flair. You're talking about two of the all-time greats are now going to mold your career and help guide you through the professional wrestling industry. Also, being a third-generation superstar obviously doesn't hurt because there's trust within the WWE and Vince McMahon that you understand the business, and he has ties to your family where if anything goes wrong, you know how Vince McMahon takes care of things. But the WWE took a massive gamble on turning Randy Orton face and having him become the World Heavyweight Champion. Well, he became the World Heavyweight Champion first and then became face when Evolution turned on him. But they took him and made him a face at 24 years old and had him become the youngest World Heavyweight Champion and technically still to this day the youngest overall World Champion in WWE history. Now, that is a lot of pressure on a guy who's only 24 years old, who, only 2 years ago was in the developmental program. And to think that he is now expected to be at the top of the WWE card, we saw a lot of things falter in his career. We saw him battle a lot of his demons. We saw him have a lot of, iffy stuff happen backstage, the way he handled stuff with a lot of the females on the roster. And it showed that, putting that type of pressure on someone so young could have absolutely derailed their career if it wasn't someone like Randy Orton. I would say 95%, maybe even 99.9% of the people in the world, if they were put in the same position that Randy Orton was to then battle his demons and go through everything he went through, would not have been able to come back and have an even better peak. It's crazy for me to say that being the youngest world heavyweight champion was nowhere near his peak. We saw him have so many different gimmicks and so many different feuds, and arguably has the greatest feud of all time with John Cena. And then to go and become this evil, sadistic, apex predator, viper, demon guy who would punt kick every single person's head off the face of the earth, and he's still going to this day. The pop that man had when he came back in Survivor Series just goes to show that his popularity may have never peaked, and we may actually be seeing the peak of his popularity right now. Obviously, when it comes to potential, championships, the guy still may have one more, maybe two more in him, with a potential Cody Rhodes feud. But it is wild to think that The guy is in his 40s now. We're talking about a man that's going to be pushing his 50s very soon. And over 20 years ago was the world heavyweight champion and the youngest world heavyweight champion. So now let's talk about his counterpart from his 2002 OVW class and Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar stormed on the scene with Paul Heyman and literally took over the WWE instantly. Within his first year, the man was the WWE champion. The man had literally reached the mountaintop of the WWE. There was no long Intercontinental Championship reign into WWE Championship. My guy sped run the WWE. My guy made it onto the main roster, beat the crap out of everybody, and said, I am the new WWE champion. But we also saw what that did to him mentally. We saw what that did to him physically. We saw that once he realized what came with being the WWE champion, the guy no longer wanted to really handle the schedule of being a full-time top-tier talent with the WWE. You have to do house shows. You have to travel all over the world. You have to be in this city one day, this city one day. And my guy wants to live on a farm in Canada on millions of acres that he owns and just chill with his beautiful wife. Unfortunately, when it comes to being the face of the WWE, you don't get to do that. So what did he do? He told Vince McMahon, I'm going to take my walking papers. I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go try playing professional football. That ended up not working out. The guy goes to the UFC, becomes a world heavyweight champion in the UFC. Mind you, this was after he became the youngest WWE champion of all time, and decided, you know what? I'm now this massive attraction. There's no one in the world that has more legitimacy as a professional wrestler than I am, because I did the professional wrestling thing. I was the youngest champion. I went over into actual MMA. I beat up real fighters, show that I'm a champion here. And now if I come back, I am the most legitimate professional wrestler possible. So when he comes back, he is arguably the biggest attraction in the world. Like, we are talking about, he is a spectacle on the level of an Andre the Giant. People will come just to see his theme song play. Now, how do you peak higher than being the WWE champion at 25 years old and literally winning the title in your first year on the roster? How about ending the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania? Brock Lesnar was the first person to beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania. A moment that some people literally talk about as a scarring moment. A moment that we'll never forget, when we saw the streak get snapped by Brock Lesnar. Now, did Brock Lesnar need to be the person to end the streak? No. Does it help build his character and talk about his achievements in the WWE? 1,000,000%. Now, obviously, we know with all the stuff that's going on in the behind the scenes of Brock Lesnar and the fact that he was named in the Vince McMahon allegations, we may never see this man in the WWE again. But it's crazy to think that the man did not peak at 25 years old when he became the youngest WWE champion. The guy, we don't even know when he technically peaked. Could it be the moment that he dethroned? Not dethroned. Could it be the moment that he ended the Undertaker streak was the peak of Brock Lesnar? Like, is there a single moment you can think of that is bigger in Brock Lesnar's career? Could it be all the other WrestleManias that he main evented? Brock Lesnar literally got sent to the moon 1 year into being in the WWE, and 20 years later is still talked about as one of the biggest attractions in the business. Now let's talk about someone that may have peaked a little too early in their WWE career. At the 2002 Survivor Series, the Big Show ended up beating Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship when Paul Heyman turned on Brock Lesnar. We're talking about the guy that was a giant in WCW, the 7-foot-tall, 400-pound monster that is a little bit limited in the ring of what he can do in terms of WWE skill set. Even though if you ever go back and you look at some of the things that he did in WCW, you're like, how did a guy that big move like that? Now, after this moment, the Big Show was legitimized as a world champion. We're talking about being the holder of the most prestigious title in the WWE. And he actually held this title one more time. He held the World Heavyweight Championship. He held the ECW Championship. He's basically held every single title you possibly could in the WWE. But nothing else felt like a peak like this moment. Nothing else that he did really lived up to this. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that it felt like Vince McMahon kept downplaying his character. He kept on having him 1 week look like an absolute crusher, absolute Andre the Giant type character, and then the next week looked like he could get snapped in half by Rey Mysterio. And the biggest problem with it was that the idea for the Big Show character was to have him be an Andre the Giant type character, but it also had to lose. And the problem was he had to lose a lot. And he did a lot of comedy style stuff. And he did a lot of tag teams. And then he had lost his Intercontinental Championship match, table match to Cody Rhodes in a very funny way. And he had reigns that were shorter than mine in the WWE. So it's one of those things where when it comes to peaking, Big Show may have peaked a little too early and became a champion and this entity that now if you beat it, you get legitimacy. And Vince McMahon kept trying to have him lose to people because if you beat a 7-foot giant and who's 400 pounds and been a WWE champion, you're supposed to be legitimized on the roster. And it felt like he never really had that same allure and mystique after that moment. He was just the Big Show from there on out. Now let's talk about some present day WWE superstars. A lot of people talk about Logan Paul will never peak in a moment like he had when he faced Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship. The only thing that you can really do that's bigger than that is becoming the WWE Champion. And with Logan Paul being a part-timer, as many will say, a lot of people think that he will never ever hold the strap. It'll be just he became a United States champion who what is considered really the lower mid-card title. It's just there to be a mid-card title. And he has viral moments when he wants to, but he will never really peak again like he did in that outing he had against Roman Reigns. Now, I'd like to argue that Logan Paul, in my opinion, should be a future world champion. He has every single skill set possible, except obviously he's not on television every single week. But he's pretty good on the mic. He has the look. He's, you can argue, one of the top 10 guys in the industry in ring. And he would be one of the most viral WWE champions. Now, do I think that he may have peaked? Do I think that he will ever have a bigger moment than him against Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship? I don't know. Outside of being the guy that beats Cody Rhodes for the title, I don't really see how you have a bigger moment than that. And it is a little unfortunate that it happened in like his first 5 matches in the WWE, his first 5 matches as a professional wrestler. But it's one of those things where you strike while the iron's hot. You take someone that is a massive superstar and you take the right moment and you just use it. You have to use it in that time. Now, I'm actually curious from you guys, because do you guys think that Logan Paul can peak any higher in the WWE without winning the WWE Championship? Now let's talk about 2 guys that I feel like the WWE needs to take their time on because of the fact that if they do peak too early, we might not be able to see them really become the faces of the next generation. And those 2 guys, in my opinion, are Braun Breaker and Ilya Dragunov. Now, I've been seeing all over on the internet, they're talking about Braun Breaker should just get strapped to the moon and take the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw. Just become the World Heavyweight Champion and become the face of that show. And I see many people saying that they should do the same thing for Ilya Dragunov and just have them start a feud and be the 2 guys that are the face of Raw for the next couple years. The problem is with those guys, they are so young that you can literally build so many stories around them and build so many moments around them without having them peak as the world champions right now. They're doing that right now with Braun Breaker by having him have his storyline for the Intercontinental title. And you can see that Ilya Dragunov is being set to, have his moments like he did with Ricochet, like more than likely he'll have with the Money in the Bank situation. And I do believe that down the line, we will see massive feuds for these guys. We'll see Ilya Dragunov feud with Gunther. We'll see Ilya Dragunov feud with Carmelo Hayes, with Braun Breaker. The thing is, these guys are so young that if you strap a rocket to them now, a lot of fans might just chew the bubblegum and throw them away. A lot of people talked about when Sheamus won the title so fast, they were no longer interested in him once he lost that title. Now, after all this time, everybody loves him because of all the work he put in. But there's a lot of guys who, once they have the opportunity too early, or you get that flash in the pan too fast, you no longer want it. And these guys are so young that I don't see any way where Braun Breaker doesn't wrestle in the WWE for at least 10 more years unless he gets bored. I don't see any way that Ilya Dragunov doesn't wrestle in the WWE for 10 more years unless he gets bored. Those guys are literally built to be professional wrestlers. They are like the definition of the next generation of professional wrestlers. And I think those two guys are going to be two of the biggest faces of the industry. And that, when I say faces, they could be heels. I'm just saying, like, those two faces will be running pro wrestling with Carmelo Hayes, with Austin Theory, with a lot of these upcoming guys like Trick Williams and a lot of the people on the NXT roster. But there's no reason that you have to skyrocket them right now and, you know, hope that you landed a Brock Lesnar, hope that you landed a Randy Orton, because you might have a situation where you have someone that you make him peak and then you go, well, what do I do with him now? Because there's not much I can do. Everyone talked about when Seth Rollins had the heist of the century. How do you have a bigger moment in Seth Rollins' career other than the heist of the century? You know what he goes out and does? He has 1 million 5-star matches. You don't have 1 million Seth Rollins out there. There's not, every other guy isn't a Seth Rollins. So you don't want people to peak a little too early. Right now, Triple H is doing a great job of building these guys up, having them be in the WWE for a couple years, having the fans get behind them, and then having them become world champions. With that being said, I want to know from you guys, can you name any guys that you think peaked too early, or any guys that you think peaked too early but still use that momentum the rest of their careers? Down in the comments below. And with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment what I asked you guys to comment if you want. Turn on that bell for notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And I just want to tell you guys, I love you guys for making it this far. I enjoyed talking to you guys today. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Much love from me to you guys. Peace.